Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Bayonets and Tomahawks, the French and Indian War. This is a game designed by Marc Rodrigue and published by GMT Games. When I first heard about this online and saw the cover, I was immediately intrigued. I don't have a lot of French and Indian War games, but it is an era that interests me because that is the prelude to the American Revolution. Generally, I prefer games World War II to modern, but there are some areas of pre-20th century that interest me, American Revolution being the primary one. So when it was released, I was able to pick up a copy, and now I'm going to share a look inside with you. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. War has broken out on the North American continent, pitting the French and British colonial empires against each other. Although they have faced off before, this time something is different. Large-scale European-style warfare transforms this theater of war, but the wilderness expanse, as well as the involvement of many indigenous nations, hampers old-world tactics. Will you be ambushed in the woods like British General Braddock in 1755? Will you charge desperately against disciplined volleys like French General Montcalm in 1759? Or will you perpetuate the glory of your king in the New World? In Bayonets and Tomahawks, take command of either the French or British to fight all facets of the French and Indian War. Army maneuvering, diplomacy with indigenous nations, raids, battles, construction, naval operations, sieges, and more. With scenarios varying from a single year to the whole war, as well as rules for team play, Bayonets and Tomahawks is perfect for new and experienced wargamers alike. Each action round, players use historically based cards for events and actions. This innovative system without hand management builds on card-driven games such as Twilight Struggle while keeping the game accessible and fast-paced. An exciting battle system featuring custom dice presents challenges that reward careful planning. Victory is achieved by capturing key spaces and conducting raids in enemy territory. Over just a few hours, relive a war that shaped the course of history in North America and beyond. And you can see here an example of the cards, the counters, the custom dice, and the map itself. For the game contents, we had a 22 by 34 inch mounted map, 54 playing cards, 135 unit counters, 8 commander counters, 17 tokens, 1 small fabric bag, 6 custom dice, 1 sheet of markers, 1 player aid, 5 scenario setup sheets, a 24-page rulebook, and a 48-page playbook. It is rated as a 3 complexity and 6 on the solitaire suitability scale. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. And we got a set of baggies, our custom dice, draw bag, 3 decks of cards, rulebook, playbook, player aid cards and setup sheets, 3 sheets of counters, and our mounted map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And we'll take a look at the mounted map that comes with the game. It's a beautiful map, very colorful and very easy to read. On the top side, we have the victory track. Beneath that, we have the battle and the commander's reroll tracks. On the left-hand side, we have the raid track. And beneath that, we have the loss box for the French. On the right-hand side, we have the loss box for the British. The top right, we have the sail box. And beneath that, we have the year and round tracks. Over here, we have legends for movement points and the connection keys. And as I said, it's very colorful, and the colors are indicative of who the territory owner is. For the British, they have the red colonies. For the French, they have the gray colonies. The Indian nation territories are in green. There are multiple types of connectors in the game and multiple spaces, and we're going to go over them right now. The round spaces are the settled spaces. The square spaces are bases. These circle spaces that are bordered in gold are victory spaces, and then we have highways, we have paths, and then these gray dotted lines are paths that connect native territories to the other colonies. There are also 2 sea spaces that separate the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Overall, really easy map to read and very beautifully done. Next, we'll take a quick look at the scenario setup cards. There are 2 for the French, 2 for the British, and 1 for the Indians. These are double-sided because there are 4 separate scenarios, actually 3 scenarios, and the 4th is the campaign setup. This will give you the nation-specific setup. and it'll be unique for each side, except for the Indians, which will always be the same for each scenario. Next, we'll take a look at the player aid that comes with the game. It is a really nicely done fold out. It'll give you all the information for the different actions and steps in the game. Here we have the actions, the action points necessary, units that will be available for actions, any action summary. Then you have your action point explanation here, movement and construction options down at the bottom. Inside we have the action round steps, which will break down all the steps that you'll need to follow. Then you have your raid, the different types of spaces, battle rolls, your rolling unit types, and then on the back we have the retreat priorities, rally, winter quarter steps, end of action round steps, and the return to colony step. And next we'll take a look at the cards that come with the game. These are pretty heavily driven by symbology, so we'll do a breakdown of what each of them means. There's not a lot of text on these cards. This one actually does have text, but it'll make sense when I go over the breakdown. The dice here in the middle, that tells you the initiative value. There will be a different dice value for each card. Bottom left, you have the build-up. That tells you whether or not it is part of the campaign deck. This AR start, that indicates whether this card will be used prior to the action phase, and it gives you the instructions as to what to do. Then the two symbols there, the triangle and the square. The triangle tells you these are for light units. The square is for army units. And this tells you how many action points for each. So in this case, you have 1 action point for a light unit, 1 for an army unit. And same thing on the next card. This gives you some instructions as to how to use them for the construction action. In the bottom left, you have the 1757 mark. That tells you the year this card is in use. Again, you can do a light unit action, and you can also do 2 army unit actions, as indicated by the 2X inside the army box. On the next card, we have a different symbol set up here. It is a triangle / square, and then you have a square with an anchor in it. The square with the anchor is obviously for your naval units, and then when it gives you that slash in between the different unit types, the action point can be used for either the light or the army units. Then here for the Indians, we have a special AR start card. If it's the last year of the scenario, the French lose 3 raid points, otherwise permanently removed from play 2 random French-controlled Indian units currently on the lost box. Permanently remove this card from play at the end of the action round. And you have here, you can move 1 light unit, and all Indian units are light units. And the last card we'll take a look at here, it says, let's see how the French fight. No Indian unit may be activated this action round, and 1 bonus light action point is added to the French card in play. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. This first sheet is for the British forces. You can see these counters are pretty large, so it'll be real easy to see on the map. Along the top, we have the British regular army units, as well as the colonial army units. Then you have some other markers that are going to be keeping track of different states in the game. Then we have artillery, forts, as well as fleets in the middle. Along the bottom, you have the light units. And remember, the light units are triangles, and the army units are squares. And that's how you're going to be easily able to tell which one's which when using your action point cards. And on the next sheet, we have the last of the British forces, and then we start with our French forces. We have our French regular units, we have bastions, artillery, forts, and a couple of fleet units, as well as your light units along the bottom. And on the last sheet, we have administrative counters, which will be used to keep track of different things throughout the game. Next, we'll take a look at these custom etched dice. These are really nicely done. The etching is beautiful, the colors really pop, and the weight of the dice is good. The one thing that did stand out was the Bayonet and Tomahawk logo here. The logo doesn't match the front cover of the game. The Bayonet is actually pointing down. The Tomahawk is correct orientation. I just thought that was kind of funny. It jumped out at me. Each of the dice is going to be just like the cards. They're going to be very driven by symbology, so we're going to go through each one of them. This first hit dice is going to tell you if you get hit on a circle and a square unit. The second is for the circle and triangle unit. The Bayonet Tomahawk, that's very versatile. It's going to tell you units that can be hit in different instances, which the rules will indicate. The advanced battle victory marker is the flag, and then the crescent is a miss, which is no effect. Next, we'll look at the rules. This is a 24-page full-color rulebook. On the inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents, so you can easily look up any rule you have questions on. Introduction, overview of play, the game map, the components, a breakdown of all the components, which we've already looked at, explaining to you what all of them are and how to read them. Then we get to the sequence of play on page 6 and setup on page 7. Then we get to the cards. We've already looked at those. Action rounds are explained to you, the breakdown of how to use all the action points based on those cards, how those can all be played. Then your Indianations, raids, interception, movement, the connection limits, and the movement along connections, army movement, light movement, sail movement, landing. Then we get to attack following movement, marshaling your troops, construction, and then battle starts on page 13. How to use the battle track on the map, battle victory markers, and all the different steps in it, as well as how to read the dice when committing to combat. Remember I said the Bayonet and Tomahawk dice, that actually has multiple uses. It's all explained to you here. Then we have hit application, battle rerolls, battle outcome, post-battle procedure, Indian desertion, rout, retreat. All that is the outcome of battle, as well as overwhelm during a retreat, and then the end of the action round. Supply check, fleets arrive, colonials enlist, and then the winter quarters turn. And then we get to the victory conditions on page 21. Unit and militia reference, so you can understand all the different unit types and its strengths and weaknesses. And then on the back, we have the battle priority table. Next, we'll take a look at the playbook. This is a 48-page full-color book. Inside the front cover, we have the table of contents. And then you start off with the example of play, which covers over half the book. This is a very detailed example of play. It's going to walk you through the first year of the game. He's calling it a boot camp, the designer Mark Rodriguez. And you can see everything is explained to you in pretty exhaustive detail with a lot of illustrated examples. It's fantastic to see this because you can take the rule book and just sit down, read it, and understand all the mechanics before you get the game to the table, and you'll know what to do when you get there. And if not, you can always refer to the playbook as well as the rule book for how any of the processes works. Then we get to the strategy primer on page 27, some play hints and some explanations for the different scenarios, card clarifications and events, the historical background, which I'm a big fan of. If you've got cards in the game, getting the background of the cards and what the historical meanings are behind them. Then we have the design notes, and then geographic locations, so you can tie in the historic names to the modern day names, counter information, scenario variants here on page 39. That take up a few pages. Then we have team rules if you want to play with more than 2 players, pointers for a solitaire player, and then select sources, as well as the credits, and then acknowledgments, and then the counter manifest. At the back of the playbook, we also have an easily forgotten rules list. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Bayonets and Tomahawks, the French and Indian War. This is a game designed by Mark Rodriguez and published by GMT Games. Like I said before, the French and Indian War is not something I've got a lot of games on. So when I saw this, it sounded really interesting. I wanted to check it out. And upon checking it out, I was like, hey, this does sound really cool. Mark Rodriguez is really passionate about this subject, and it's pretty evident in the amount of detail that went into this game, especially the playbook. Over half of it is dedicated to walking you through all aspects of the game, and I think that's fantastic. It is a great example for other designers when they're coming out with a game to have really good detailed examples of play like that. That is one of the best I've ever seen, and kudos to him on that. Great quality production as always. I love these dice. The etching is great. The weight feels good. And of course, the components are all top notch. So really looking forward to getting this one on the table and checking it out solo, hopefully pretty soon. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. Do you have any comments or questions? Post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.